I thought she was asleep. Until she said my name, I thought silence was the safest place to hide what I felt. Turns out it listens back. The house was breathing in its own way that night. Old pipes ticking, the refrigerator humming like it was thinking too hard. The lamp by the couch was still on, throwing a warm circle across the rug. She was asleep there, or at least I believe she was. Her head leaned against the armrest, hair loose, glasses folded carefully on the coffee table as if she'd placed them there before giving in. I should have turned off the light and gone to my room. That was the rule I made for myself. Quiet. Distance. Don't linger. Instead, I stood there too long, holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold. She was in her mid-40s, confident in a way that didn't announce itself. It lived in how she moved, how she listened. She wore a soft sweater that slipped off one shoulder just enough to look accidental, and I hated myself for noticing. I was in my 20s, still figuring out who I was supposed to be when no one was watching. With her, I felt seen in a way that scared me. Like she noticed the pauses between my sentences, the things I didn't say. We hadn't planned this quiet. It found us after dinner, after a conversation that drifted and never landed. She'd asked about my job again, like she was trying to understand not just what I did, but who I was becoming. I talked too much. She listened. That was usually how it went. I took a step closer, then stopped. The air felt tight, like the room knew something I didn't. I told myself I was only checking if she needed a blanket. I told myself a lot of things. Her breathing was slow, even. I could see the faint crease between her brows, the one that showed up when she was thinking too hard or worrying. I wondered what kept her awake when no one else was there. I wondered if she ever thought about me when I wasn't in the room. That thought alone made my chest feel stupidly full. I reached for the throw blanket on the chair. My fingers brushed the edge, and in that tiny sound, the soft whisper of fabric, she stirred. I froze. "Don't," she murmured, barely louder than the hum of the fridge. I swallowed. I didn't mean to wake you. She didn't open her eyes. Her hand shifted, fingers curling slightly, like she was holding on to something invisible. I wasn't asleep. The words landed heavier than they should have. I stood there, heart knocking, suddenly aware of how close I was, how the light caught the lines at the corners of her eyes, how familiar the room felt, and how dangerous that familiarity was. "Then why didn't you say anything?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled just a little. "You looked like you needed the quiet." I laughed under my breath. I always do. That's when she finally looked at me. Not quickly, not carefully, like she'd already made a decision and was letting me see it. "Sit," she said. I did. Too close. Not close enough. We talked about nothing for a minute, weather, a show we both pretended not to care about. My knee bounced. Her hand rested on the cushion between us, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth. Every second felt like a question neither of us wanted to ask. Then her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and something shifted in her face. Hesitation, maybe fear. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she looked back at me and said my name. And in the way she said it, soft, deliberate, I knew the quiet was about to break, and whatever came next would change everything. She didn't explain the phone. Neither did I ask. We both pretended the buzz hadn't carved a line through the room. Instead, she leaned back, crossing her arms loosely, like she was bracing herself against a draft only she could feel. The lamp hummed. My coffee sat untouched, a thin skin forming on top. I noticed everything because I was trying not to notice her. "You always do that," she said. "Do what?" "Go quiet after something almost happens." She said it gently, not accusing, like it was a habit she'd been observing for a while. I shrugged. "I'm just careful." She smiled at that, but it didn't reach her eyes. I used to be too. That was new. She didn't talk about her past often, only in fragments. A marriage that looked solid from the outside. A house full of routines. Promises that slowly stopped being questions and turned into expectations. She never said his name. She didn't have to. "He still texts," she added, nodding toward the phone, even when he knows I won't answer right away. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not anger, something quieter. He existed. I'd always known that, but hearing it out loud made it real in a way I didn't like. You don't have to explain, I said quickly. I want to, she replied, then paused. I just don't know where to start. I did. I started talking about my last relationship, how it ended not with a fight, but with indifference, how being overlooked hurt more than being yelled at. I told her how I'd moved here thinking it would be temporary, how I didn't expect to feel anchored. She listened the way she always did, head tilted slightly, eyes steady, like she was holding space, not waiting her turn. This, she said quietly, gesturing between us, isn't simple. No, I agreed, but it feels honest. That was the risk. The age gap was obvious. People would see it before they heard us speak. And there was her life, still technically intertwined with someone else's. And me, still figuring out who I was allowed to be. I knew all of that. I carried it with me like a list of reasons to stay seated exactly where I was. Still, my knee stopped bouncing. I didn't move away. She sighed and rubbed her temples. I tell myself I'm just tired, that this is just comfort. And I asked, and then you look at me like that, she said, meeting my eyes. And I remember how rare it is to feel noticed. The word landed hard. Noticed. That was it. That was everything. Without thinking, I reached out. Just enough for my fingers to brush hers. It wasn't dramatic. No sharp intake of breath. Just skin meeting skin, warm and steady. She didn't pull away. Her hand turned slightly, like she was deciding something in real time. This is where I should stop, she said. But you're not, I replied, barely above a whisper. She looked at our hands, then back at me. No, the room felt smaller, fuller, charged with all the things we weren't saying. And in that silence, thick, deliberate, I realized this wasn't a moment I wanted to escape. It was one I wanted to remember. Her hand stayed in mine longer than it should have. Long enough for my brain to start shouting all the reasons this was a bad idea. Long enough for my body to ignore every single one of them. Then she pulled back, not abruptly, carefully, like she was setting something fragile down before it shattered. I need to get some air, she said, already standing. I nodded too fast. Yeah, of course. She moved toward the back door, pausing to grab her phone. The screen lit up again, same name as before. I didn't read it, but I didn't need to. The way her jaw tightened told me everything. I stayed on the couch, hands suddenly empty, heat still lingering where she'd been. I told myself this was good. Space. Reset. I told myself I'd stand up in a minute and pretend none of this had happened. I didn't move. Outside, the night pressed in close. I could see her through the glass, shoulders slightly hunched, one arm wrapped around herself. She answered the call, turned away. I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel the weight of them, the kind that come from shared history, from obligation. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my roommate. You home? I stared at it, then locked the screen without replying. The door opened again. She stepped back inside, and for a second we just looked at each other. Something had shifted, not broken, tightened. He's coming by tomorrow, she said. Oh, the word came out flat. He wants to talk. She exhaled slowly. He always wants to talk. I stood this time. Too quickly. You don't know me, I know. She held up a hand. But I don't want you thinking this is nothing. That scared me more than if she'd said the opposite. We moved around each other awkwardly, like we were relearning the space. I reached for my jacket, then stopped when she spoke again. Do you ever think about how easy it would have been if we'd met differently? She asked. All the time I thought. Instead, I said, yeah. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her shampoo, something clean and familiar. Her fingers hovered near my wrist, not touching. A question without words. This is the part where I should say goodnight, she said. And you won't, I replied. She didn't deny it. For a moment, just one, everything narrowed. The room, the noise, the rules. I leaned in before I could stop myself. She did too. Not a kiss. Not quite. Our foreheads touched, breath mixing, both of us suspended between choice and consequence. Her hand curled into my sleeve. Then headlights swept across the front window. She froze. I pulled back immediately, heart slamming. A car door outside. Footsteps. Too familiar to be a delivery. She whispered my name, not like before. This time, it sounded like a warning. I didn't expect him this early, she said. A knock at the door. Neither of us moved. And in that stillness, with everything exposed and nothing decided, I realized there was no going back to the quiet we started in. The knock came again. Harder this time. She flinched. Not dramatically. Just enough to tell me this wasn't a surprise visit between old friends. This was unfinished business with a pulse. Go to your room, she said quickly. I'm not a kid, I replied, sharper than I meant to. Her eyes met mine. Something flickered there. Fear, maybe, or relief. Please. That word did it. I nodded, stepped back, then stopped halfway down the hall. I didn't close the door. I stood there listening, hating myself for it, and doing it anyway. She opened the front door. His voice filled the space immediately. Calm. Familiar. Too comfortable for someone who was supposed to be leaving her life. I tried calling, he said. I saw, she replied. A pause. Shoes coming off. Like he still belonged. I leaned against the wall, heart beating where my throat should have been. I told myself I didn't care, that this wasn't my place, that I was just a temporary presence in her life, passing through like everything else. Then I heard him say, You've been distant. She didn't answer right away. I know when something's off, he continued. I always have. That did it. Something hot and reckless climbed up my chest. I stepped back into the living room before I could talk myself out of it. They both turned. The look on his face, surprise first, then calculation, made my jaw tighten. He took me in quickly. The age difference, the proximity, the tension that hadn't had time to cool. Didn't know you had company, he said. I live here, I said, immediately regretting how defensive it sounded. She inhaled sharply. This isn't, I think it is, he interrupted, eyes never leaving mine. Silence stretched. Thick, unforgiving. I didn't plan for this, she said finally. Her voice wasn't steady, but it wasn't apologetic either. But I'm done pretending I don't feel anything. My stomach dropped. She hadn't said my name. She didn't have to. He laughed once, short and hollow. You're throwing everything away for this? She straightened. I'm choosing not to disappear anymore. That was it. The breaking point. I felt exposed and invisible at the same time. Like I'd been pulled into a story that started long before me and somehow landed on my shoulders. I didn't ask for this. I said more to her than him. I tried to stay out of it. She turned to me then, really looked at me. I know. He shook his head. You don't even know what you're doing. Neither do you, she said quietly. You decide that I used to stay. Another pause. He picked up his keys. The room felt lighter and heavier all at once. I'll give you space, he said, but don't expect this to end cleanly. The door closed behind him. Neither of us moved. She leaned back against the wall, eyes closed, breath uneven. I stepped toward her, then stopped inches away. This is where I walk away, I said. Yes, she whispered. I didn't. Her eyes opened. Our faces were close enough now that the world felt optional. Her hand lifted, hesitated near my chest, and just before it touched me, before either of us crossed the line we couldn't uncross, she said, If we do this, everything changes. I didn't answer. Her hand never reached my chest. Instead, it dropped, slowly like gravity finally won. I need to tell you something, she said. Those words didn't scare me. The way she wouldn't look at me did. I waited. My heart felt too loud for the room. I signed the papers last week, she said. Not the final ones, but the ones that started. I blinked. You're getting divorced? I am, she nodded. Or I was. I don't even know how to phrase it anymore. Relief hit first, sharp and embarrassing. Then confusion chased it down. Why does that sound like a but? I asked. She let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Almost. Because I also put the house on the market. The words didn't land right away. They circled, then hit. You're moving, I said. Yes. When? Soon. Soon was a word that could mean anything. Weeks. Days. Tomorrow. I stepped back without meaning to. You were going to tell me? I was trying to, she said quickly. Tonight. I swear. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. That somehow made it worse. So this, a gesture between us, was temporary to you? No, she said sharper now. Don't do that. Then what was it? I asked, because it feels like I'm standing in a room that's already been sold. She flinched. That was new. I hated myself for noticing and kept going anyway. I didn't plan for you, she said. You just happened. And then you mattered. That's not comforting, I replied. Silence again. The bad kind. The kind that rearranges things. She reached for my arm. I didn't pull away, but I didn't lean in either. Her fingers curled there, tentative, afraid. There's something else, she said. My stomach dropped. You're really good at that sentence. I heard you earlier, she continued softly. I frowned. He was here the whole time. No, before, when you were in your room. She swallowed. On the phone. The air shifted. You were listening? I wasn't trying to, she said. I heard my name. Then yours. I remember the call. My roommate. The way I'd paced, staring at the wall. What did you hear? I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked. You said you might move out. That this was getting complicated. I opened my mouth and closed it. I didn't say I was leaving you, I said. You didn't say you were staying, she replied. Fair. I dragged a hand through my hair. I was trying to be responsible, and I was trying to be brave, she said. Looks like we both failed. Something cracked then. Not loud, just enough to hurt. So what now? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know, but I can't ask you to build something with me when I might disappear in a month. I nodded slowly. That part made sense. Too much sense. Then maybe we stop, I said. Her hand tightened on my arm. Is that what you want? No, it wasn't. But wanting didn't feel like enough anymore. I gently removed her hand. The space between us felt enormous now. I think, I said carefully, this is where we decide who we're really willing to lose. She didn't answer, and that scared me more than anything else that night, that I didn't sleep. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house shift and settle like it was deciding whether to keep us or let us go. Every few minutes I thought I heard her door open. It never did. That felt intentional, like we were both giving each other one last chance to back out. By morning, my chest hurt in a dull, steady way. Not panic. Resolve. I found her in the kitchen, standing barefoot by the sink, mug untouched. Her hair was pulled back badly, like she hadn't looked in a mirror and didn't care. She looked tired in a way that went past sleep. She turned when she sensed me. Didn't smile. Didn't apologize. Morning, she said. Yeah, I replied. We stood there, the space between us heavy with everything we hadn't finished. The house felt smaller than it ever had. I'm leaving today, she said. I nodded once. To look at places? No, she said quietly. To stop running. That made me look at her. I canceled the listing, she continued. This morning. I told them we're done. Completely. I didn't move. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. I didn't sleep either, she said. I kept thinking about what you said. About deciding who we're willing to lose. She set the mug down, hands shaking just enough to be honest. I've spent years choosing safety and calling it maturity. And all it did was make my life smaller. I swallowed. You don't have to choose me just because you're scared of being alone. She stepped closer, not invading, offering. I'm not, she said. I'm choosing you because when I imagine not seeing you anymore, it feels wrong in my body. Like I'd be lying again. That cracked something open in me. I was scared too, I admitted, of being the mistake, of being the thing you regret later when this gets hard. She reached out, slower than before, and this time I didn't stop her. Her hand rested flat against my chest. Steady. Real. I already regret the years I didn't choose honestly, she said. I won't add you to that list. My breath came out uneven. This won't be easy. I know, she said. People will have opinions. Some days we'll doubt ourselves. I'm asking you to stay. And tell me when you're scared instead of disappearing. I didn't answer right away. I stepped closer until there was no space left to negotiate. I'm scared right now, I said. Her fingers tightened slightly against my shirt. Me too. That was the truth. And somehow, it felt like enough. I leaned in. This time, she didn't hesitate. Our foreheads touched first, like before, but this time neither of us pulled away. Her breath caught. Mine followed. When our lips finally met, it wasn't fireworks or drama. It was soft, certain, like something that had been waiting patiently for permission. When we pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. We don't know what happens next, she whispered. No, I said, but we're not pretending anymore. She nodded, and for the first time since this began, the future didn't feel like something to escape. The house didn't change overnight. That surprised me. The same creaky step near the hallway. The same afternoon light hitting the kitchen counter at the wrong angle. Same coffee mugs, mismatched, chipped at the rim. I think part of me expected everything to feel different once we chose each other. Lighter, louder, obvious. Instead, it felt quieter, not empty, settled. We didn't tell anyone right away. Not because we were hiding, but because we were learning how to exist inside the choice before letting the world comment on it. Mornings came with small rituals. Her reading at the table while I pretended not to watch her turn pages. Me leaving notes she pretended not to find until I was gone. Sometimes we argued. Not about us, about dishes, timing, the stupid way I'd avoid a conversation when I felt cornered. She called me out gently. Idealisken. That alone felt like progress. One afternoon, a week later, we sat on the back steps as the sun went down. She rested her head against my shoulder without asking. I noticed how unnatural it felt, how my body didn't brace or question it anymore. You still think about leaving? She asked quietly. Sometimes, I admitted, when it feels too big. She nodded. Me too, when it feels too fragile. Neither of us moved away. We talked about the age gap, really talked about it. The stares we'd get, the assumptions, the way people would decide our story before hearing it. She told me what it was like to be expected to already know everything at her age. I told her how exhausting it was to be treated like I didn't. Some nights, she'd go quiet. Not distant, processing. I learned not to fill the silence right away. Other nights, I talked too much, nervous energy spilling everywhere. She'd let me. Then she'd reach for my hand and ground me without saying a word. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. The first time we went out together, openly, she squeezed my hand under the table when she noticed someone looking too long. Not embarrassed. Protective. Proud. Later, back home, I asked, "Do you ever worry we're wrong?" She considered it, then said, "I worry we'd be more wrong if we hadn't tried." That stayed with me. Months passed. The fear softened. The longing changed shape. What used to feel like risk began to feel like responsibility, to show up, to speak up, to stay even when it was easier to disappear. One night, as we turned off the lights, she said my name the way she did when she wanted me to listen. "I'm glad you stayed," she said. I kissed her temple. "I'm glad you stopped pretending you didn't feel this." She smiled in the dark. Content. Awake. And lying there, listening to the house breathe around us, I realized something simple and terrifying. Love wasn't the dramatic moment when everything almost fell apart. It was the quiet decision to remain, again and again, after it already had. So tell me this. Have you ever stayed when leaving would have been safer? Do you believe timing can be wrong, but people still right? And if love asks you to risk comfort for honesty, would you choose it?